Greetings, YouTube. So I found a quiz, and I do love quizzes, so I thought I'd answer questions in said quiz. And it's described as 50 first, 50 engaging questions on life experiences and the first time you had them. Okay, what was your first car? It was a Geo Prism. I actually had two Geo Prisms back to back, Puck and Mist. Both were green. What was the first person you said cared more about than you were being their well-being than your own? That was probably my grandmother Hilda. I recently did a video about some of her belongings. What was your first public speaking success? I was probably when I was chatelaine in the SCA. I would probably have been 26, I think, or something like that. I consider that to be my first true success. 26 or 27 years old. What was the first time you got stitches? I was 3 months old. When was the first time you stayed up all night and watched the sunrise? I want to say for 14 or 15. It might have been 15, I'm not positive. It was at the beach. It was quite lovely. What was the first time you learned to cook? I was going to say 14 or 15 as well. What was your first paying job? I was 14 years old. I was working as a janitor at a string factory. Sweeping string on a wooden floor was no fun at all. What was the first time you flew on an airplane? My recollection, it was 14 years old. What was the first concert you went to see? That would be Joe Cocker, unless you're counting, like school concerts and things I was in as well as viewed, which I don't think that question is referring to, so I would probably say Joe Cocker. America opened for him. What's the second time I saw Joe Cocker? I think 2 years later, Stevie Ray Vaughan opened for him, and it was 2 weeks before he died. That was a good concert and a good memory. What was your first bike like? I had a bike. I vaguely believe it was blue. I never learned to ride a bike. I still do not know how to ride a bike. It's something that I probably should do someday. When was the first time you shot a gun? I was 12. When was the first time you moved house? We moved 14 times by age 5. So, quite young. When was the first time you threw a punch? I threw punches at inanimate objects for years because I had anger issues and depression and anxiety, but that would probably be 13. That was throwing a punch at another person. When was the first time you quit a job? I'm going to say 18 or 19. 18, I think 18. What was the first professional sporting event you went to? I've never been to one. What was the first time you realized you were good at your job? 27, 28. Again, anxiety and depression gets in the way of those kind of things. You don't think positive thoughts about yourself. What was your first regrettable hairstyle? I had a mullet when I was 20. What was your first business venture? That's how are you defining business venture? Something I did outside of a paid job to get money. I want to probably say 26 or 27 maybe. Didn't do many things like that. Mostly I just worked. How old were you when you first left home? I was 20 years old. Had a good gig at home. What was your first time you cut class? I'm going to say 16 probably. How old were you when you had your first kiss? I was 14. When was your first time you went fishing? It was in single digits. I'm not really sure when. How old were you when you got your first computer? 27, 28. I entered the computer age fairly late. When was the first time you stood up for yourself? Well, seeing as I suffer from depression and anxiety, I wasn't good at that. But I tried in some levels to stand up for myself at 14 or 15. They weren't overly successful. What was the first big ticket item you purchased? That would have been an NEC monitor when I was 19. I loved that thing. I had it until about 4 or 5 years ago. It was a great monitor. High quality, very good. I donated it to a library because it was still working. And I had it, all those years. What was the first book that made you cry? I have no idea. I started reading when I was 5, so it could have been any kind of younger book when I was your kid. What was your first road trip? My family routinely drove between New Hampshire and Pennsylvania 3 to 4 times a year from age 5 until I was 14. So I had lots of road trips. Why did you break up with your first boyfriend/girlfriend? I broke up with my first girlfriend. I don't remember why. I think just it wasn't working out. We had some kind of argument or something or other. What was the first thing you ever won? I had inordinate success at raffles when I was younger. So I don't know, 14 maybe? I'm not positive. Probably maybe I could have won something younger than that, but I don't know what. Might ask my parents for that one, I guess. Who was your first best friend? That is also a hard one. It was in, again, single digits. I don't have a really clear recollection of some of those years, so I couldn't tell you that one. What was the first time you let a friend down? Like I said, I suffered from anxiety and depression, and I figured I was letting people down every single day, every minute of every day. So I am not a good judge of that particular question. Do you believe in love at first sight? Yes. When was the first Christmas you realized that Santa Claus was not real, and they spelled Claus C-L-A-U-S-E? Probably age 5, because that's when I stopped believing in the Christian God. When was your first trip to Vegas? Never had one. I don't know if I ever will have one. When was the first time people looked to you in a crisis? I'm going to say 15. Yeah, probably 15. When was the first time you realized that you were smarter than your parents? 12. What was the first sweetheart that you took home to meet your parents? Who was the first? Her name was Sandra, I believe. Who was your first love? Her name was Janet. It was bittersweet and wonderful, and I hope that she is doing well. What was the first time you realized that you were in way over your head? Again, anxiety, depression made me feel that way every single day, so I don't know if I can answer that question. What was your first phone number? 668-3214. I still remember it. What was your first time in the hospital? I was born prematurely, so day 1. What was the first time you finished something really big? That's a good question. Maybe the first gig. I was in charge of in the SCA, the first event, and that was pretty late in my life. 27, 28, something like that maybe. I'm not positive. When was the first time you took responsibility for someone else's mistake? I was really good at that. In fact, I took responsibility for things that were not my purview. I took responsibility for the bad weather. Again, anxiety and depression skews your ability to make judgment calls. When was the first time you saw the ocean? I don't remember, but I was young. I was probably 6 or 7. Maybe, 6 or 7. How old were you when you first drank alcohol? I was 14. I was remarkably good at alcohol. I come from a line of male alcoholics. Alcohol and I were very fast friends. And by age 22, I stopped drinking, and I haven't drunk since. Who was the first person you had a crush on? I had a friend's mother, and I believe I was 7. I loved older women when I was younger. Who was the first person you voted for? I was a late political bloomer. That would probably be John Kerry. I did not vote for most of my adult life because I thought it was pointless. Again, it's all kind of the outgrowth of my depression. But my wife, we weren't married at the time, my wife convinced me that I really needed to step up to the plate and do my civic responsibility. And I did, and she turned me into the political monster I am today, and she kind of regrets it. Who Who was your first email address? I have no idea, to tell you the truth. I really don't. I had a friend that ran his own server, and I had an email address through him because he had his own whole network and everything. I don't remember what it was. It was something related to the SCA, though, I think. What was your first slow dance like? What was your first slow dance like? I had absolutely no idea, but it was probably insufferably awkward. Who was the first person to have a crush on you? I'm hoping to say my girlfriend at 14, but I did have someone become obsessed with me when I was 17, so I'm not really sure how to answer that one. What do you remember about your first day of school? Absolutely nothing. What was the first time someone close to you died? I was 15 years old, I believe, when someone in my family died. It was my grandmother. Yeah, I was 15. And way to end a quiz on a down note. Wow, that's a really, kind of a bummer question. But those are the questions. I will put them in the info bar so that other people can answer them if they so choose to. And of course, video responses are always welcome.